bond within the tribe.
Thing that'll make you successful, have a vision for that and backwards plan out that vision to where you take action steps that everything you do, your most prized possession is your time.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur. It's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Lotus Mcgregor, and Otis grew up in Fort Worth and went to Texas A&M. Then enlisted and was a tank driver for a period of time, got stationed in Alaska, volunteered to do the special forces and ended up being a Green Beret, retired, and then felt like his life lost a bit of his purpose. So over the next 7 years, bounced between a few companies, couldn't quite find what he loved or what he wanted to do. Then had a job as a chief operations officer and got a lot of flexibility, got to travel home back to Texas. Then about 5 years ago, was sitting in the office wondering what he wanted to do. Two things he thought about, two things he loved. One was his family and the other was coaching high school rugby. And so with that, he got introduced to doing a few things in there, primarily with doing some business coaching and other executive coaching to kind of mix a lot of his passions together. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Otis.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here. And I'll apologize if I'm fired up. I just gave a talk to my old unit that I served with that is still like my family just an hour or so ago. So I'm still amped up on the adrenaline rush from that.
All right. Well, it'll make for an exciking podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Well, with that, so I just gave the 30-second version to a much longer journey. So why don't you take us back a little bit in time and tell us how your journey got started in Fort Worth?
Yeah, well, I felt a call to serve, truthfully, and that call to serve for me was through the military. I always remember going into Dad's office one night and telling him I wanted to fly airplanes. Dad was an aerospace engineer at the time, was building the F-16, which when I think back to the history that my dad touches in that. But at the time and now I wear glasses, and Dad said, you can't fly airplanes, you wear glasses. So I went back, felt sorry for myself for a few days, and then said, well, then I'll join the Army. And that's what put me on a path to A&M, joined the Corps of Cadets. While I was there, I wanted to get more experience. That's why I enlisted while I was there. Joined the Texas Army National Guard. There's those of you in TV land can see the patch over my shoulder, the 49th Armored Division, and had some great times and great experience there. And yeah, then received a commission, became an engineer in the Army, and went to Alaska and built ice bridges. Yes, there is such a thing. Ironically,
I'm curious. So just because it's a bit of an aside, but how do you build it? Now all I know, I'll give you a caveat, is from what I see on TV with ice road truckers, where I believe the lake just freezes over and they scrape it off and drive over top. I assume building an ice bridge is slightly different, but give us an idea of how do you build an ice bridge?
Honestly, not much more than that. That's the funny thing about it, because really what you do is you drill holes in the ice. We had these pumps, I think the brand was Typhoon pumps. You drill a hole in ice, just like if you were going ice fishing. You drop the pump down in the hole and it pumps water up on top of the ice. It makes the ice thicker, and you measure the depth of the ice. And I don't remember what the formula is, but X number of inches can withstand this number of tons and all this sort of stuff. So you in a sense pump water from the river or the lake on top, and it's cold enough that it refreezes. And you create the thickness. Now, the hard part about it is, or the dangerous part about it is the river is still flowing, so it creates friction. So the thickness of the ice is the thickness of the ice that Mother Nature creates. but we're trying to add to it. So we're constantly measuring it and adding to it, because I had it happen a couple of times. Fortunately, it wasn't mine. But when you drop a truck or a bulldozer in the river, and in January in Alaska, yeah, you ain't getting it out until July. And there is a bulldozer in the Tanana River, about an hour south of Fairbanks, Alaska, that I'd be willing to bet 40 years later
It's still there, because it's not easier or not straightforward to be able to get that out. And
it ain't worth the effort at some
exactly.
point.
Well, that's interesting. No, all I knew is from the TV show, and I think there's a Netflix movie on ice road truckers, and that's my extent. So I just was curious on that. So now you got stationed as Alaskan. I think at some point you got into the special forces in Green Beret. Is that right?
Yeah. So while I was in Alaska, I volunteered to go through the Green Beret training. That's the process. You volunteer for it. Your paperwork goes through a selection process. That's the gate one, and then you go through what we call selection and assessment, which is 3 weeks of tough stuff where you don't know the standard. The only standard is do the best you can. Some individual efforts, some leadership efforts, some teamwork, some long walks in the middle of the night, and not romantic long walks. I was just laughing because I was there. I think about that. I think of, long walks on the beach. No, not quite. Just more like long walks through the swamp. And then that just qualifies you to go through the training, which is another selection process of going through the training of whether or not you're smart enough, tough enough, and have the resiliency to get through all that, another 6 months of that, and language training and those things. Then you finally get to go do, after year plus, almost year and a half or so of training, you finally get to the unit and get to do the cool stuff. So yeah, that's where I spent the rest of my career. Not all of it cool stuff. Got to do cool stuff for a little while, then you got to go pay the piper. The Army has its way of what goes around comes around, and the Army always knows. So yeah.
Hey, that's fair enough. And sounds like if you get to do some cool stuff in your career, that's a pretty good career to have. So now you did that, and I think you did that for, or how many years were you in the military?
I did 25 years. So significant chunk of my life, the formative years, if you will, of my life, from 19 years old until whatever the math would, 40 something. Yeah.
So you did that. Now you did that for a while, and got to do a lot of cool stuff. And it would have been probably fun to hear some of that cool stuff. Probably some of the cool stuff you can't quite share. But so now you're saying, okay, got it. You did that for for 25 years, which is quite a while. Got to do some cool stuff, not so cool stuff, and whatnot. And then now as you're coming out, and you're saying, okay, you're retired from the Army, but if you're only in your 40s, you still got quite a bit of life ahead of you, and maybe not, and trying to find out what you're going to do kind of next. And so as you're coming out, retiring from the Army but not from life, how did you kind of figure out what you're going to do next? I know we talked a little bit that you kind of lost your purpose, so how did that transition go?
Yeah, well, truthfully, the official transition for me went really well. The unofficial, the personal transition was tough, because I did what I thought other people thought I should do, which is, you have this picture of got to get a job, and that set me in this path, in this career picture of whatever job is available, whatever offer letter I get, look at the number for the salary and go, yeah, okay, that's acceptable, and then go do it. And every job I took post Army, I thought was going to be just like the Army. In my mind, every job I planned to do for the next 20 years until I retired. And every one of them at the 90-day mark, which is funny because, actually there's a book on my shelf. I'll put a plug in for it, called The First 90 Days, which is if you don't know anything about business, read that book. It's a great book. Wish somebody would have given it to me much earlier in life. but there's a reason it's the first 90 days, because it's like we take about 90 days to figure things out. It's kind of like, where's my office? Where's the desk? How do I, where's the keys or the combination, all those sort of things. And about 90 days into each of those jobs, I went, man, this ain't right. I don't know. Something ain't right. Didn't set right with me, didn't feel right. And I'd hang out because, that's what I was taught to do, in my military career. I'd hang out for about as long as I could take it. And then I quit with no plan. I mean, that was the other thing. My wife loved that. Come on. So yeah, I just turned in my resignation letter, gave my 2 weeks. Oh,
So now,
okay.
but I think that there's that kind of or pull and tug, right? And every job, they're saying the thing you want to go for is the highest salary and the best perks, and yet you get into the job and you're saying, yeah, but I still have to do it every day, day to day, and it still has to be enjoyable. Not every day is exciting, just like it was in the military, but you have to feel like you have a purpose or something that you enjoy going into work and accomplishing something. Otherwise, it just doesn't last and doesn't have that staying power. So I think you mentioned that you went through, kind of several different jobs over a period of time, and it was over, I think, about the next 7 years, but really couldn't find what you loved, and kind of continued to go through those. And then you were working, I think, as a COO or Chief Operations Officer, and contemplating kind of what you liked. Is that right?
Yeah, Chief Strategy Officer, which is even more abstract, right? And I was fortunate. I still and eternally grateful to a good friend of mine, Rob Aiken. Give him a shout out. And the company's called Crisis Response Company. And I'll even give them a little commercial. They do operational and logistics support in Africa. Great company. So I was their chief strategy officer, which means I was doing whatever the hell I wanted to. Love you, Rob, but I was, and it, because nobody knows what a business strategy officer does, chief strategy officer. I'm doing business 5, 6 years, I'm prepping for business 5 years and beyond. And sure been pretty darn happy with that, man. Carte blanche to meet whoever I wanted to, whenever I wanted to, travel when and where I wanted to, because I was doing business strategy. And even going back and back to the flagpole, I'd call it, back to the company headquarters, is based in Fort Worth. I was going to my hometown, see mom and dad, the in-laws, all that. Pretty darn lucky to have that kind of job, but I was pretty miserable, frustrated, miserable in what I was doing and how I was doing it, and who I was doing it with. Nothing wrong with the people, nothing wrong with it was very much the girlfriend that comes up to you, say, it's not you, it's me. Well, in this case, it really was me. And yeah, it was a summer afternoon, sitting here in the home office, literally feeling sorry for myself, wondering who I was, what I was supposed to be doing, what should I be, how should I do it, where, all these sort of questions that were finally coming to the surface. And as you mentioned earlier, I started to reflect on that and realized that only 2 things in my life had been consistent since leaving the Army: my family and rugby. And as I looked at, well, why rugby? I'd been coaching at that point, boys high school rugby for 7 years. And what was it? I never played the game. So what was it? And well, the game of rugby is awesome. Love it. Discovered it very late in life, but still had fallen in love with it, and huge fan of it and proponent of it. The boys, we had 35 extra sons in and out of our house 7 days a week. Love those boys like they were our own sons. But what I realized was being a coach is really what fulfilled me. Challenging those young men to do better than they thought they could, holding them accountable for doing what they said they would do, guiding and teaching them to accomplish more than they thought they could. And talked to a few of my friends and got introduced to executive coaching. Didn't know that was a thing at the time. And that's what I shifted my career to. Got certified as a coach through the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. Loved that program. And set me on a path to doing what I do now, fulfilling my purpose, which is creating a legacy of leaders. And it is the thing that drives me every day, is to help people pursue what they want to achieve, not what they think others think they should do, not what they've been told by others what they should do, but what they want to do. And that's a powerful place to be when you start doing what you want to do and pursuing that. And I get to work with people to help them discover that, be more successful, and in that greater success, being happier in life.
Oh, I think that there's definitely a lot of benefit to be able to find that earlier in life, and be able to make sure that that is all in line and gives you that purpose and that drive. And I like how, as you're saying, what do I like to do? It was coaching, but it was with rugby, and it was, took a bit of that reflection to say, well, it's what aspects of coaching, right? Or what aspects of rugby? And it was that coaching aspect and mentoring or giving guidance to others, not just, hey, I'd like to go to do rugby. Because sometimes you get it mixed up and say, well, rugby is my only passion, then I'm just going to become a full-time high school coach, when really that may not be the best path or the best opportunity. It may not be what you want to do. And so to kind of pinpoint what it is that you like about it, sounds like it sets you up to be on the path where you're at now, and find that enjoyment and purpose again with that coaching experience. So now, as you've gone down that path, kind of bring us a bit up to where you're at today. Is coaching gone well? You love it. You're building a clientele. You're going and speaking all around the world, or you're doing it as a side and just as a enjoyment, or as a side hustle, or as a semi-retired, or kind of where are you at today?
I just check E, all the above. Yeah. No, what this does, I mean, it truly is my purpose and a passion. And within my purpose of that is I have a couple of passions. And one of them I just did this morning, as I mentioned earlier, when we first started, is helping soon to be veterans not go through that same problem set that I did. So I'm hugely passionate. That's why I was down at my old unit, just giving that, pre-retirement talk and helping guys and their spouses understand how to prep for that, and how to set themselves in that path. And one of the things that I've done, I volunteer my services in that sense, and give back to my veteran community in that sense through a couple of nonprofits, the Commit Foundation and the Honor Foundation, and then also the Green Beret Foundation, which we do something a little bit different. But what I do beyond that in my business is I work with groups of business leaders, and I call them tribes, and bring those tribes together, because it's much more powerful to work with people and have that group. Because here's what happens, is that group forms a bond, and that becomes not just in a lot, most of the time, I should say, probably 98% of the time, that group starts to grow and do things on its own outside the facilitated meeting that, the coaching time, facilitated coaching mastermind time that I run. They create these relationships because they're bound together through their joined success, if you will, because they hear each other, they hear what each other are celebrating and celebrate with them. And they also listen and hear what each other are struggling with. And we work to solve everybody's problems and celebrate everybody's success. And that creates this bond within the tribe that even leads to business partnerships within the tribe, which is a powerful thing, because you've been working with this person back and forth, and you've heard their struggles, you've heard their successes, and you know what kind of person that is. So you know what kind of business relationship that would be. And it's a powerful place to be, because you've got this close, tight, because I keep these groups small, my power tribes, I keep them less than 10 people. You have this tight knit group where everybody cares about everybody else. The people who don't fit in, generally speaking, I like to think that, I put them in the right spot, but it doesn't always happen. But they self-select out, right? Because, they're not putting in the effort. They're kind of half-assing it, don't show up, and then they just fade away. Because, like anything in life, you get out of it what you put into it. So if you buy into it completely, and when you show up for that meeting, that power tribe meeting, and you're fully engaged, you're going to get a lot out of it. But if you show up and, you're doing 3 other things, checking out Facebooks and emails, whatever, watching the dog run around, guess what? You're not going to get a whole lot out of it. And eventually you'll go, well, I'm not getting anything out. Well, because you're not putting anything into it. So that's where we're focusing now. I'll also tell you one of the, and I haven't really said this publicly yet, but this would be a good spot. My son is part of the business. My youngest son, Camden, we do our podcast, the Cam and Otis show together. We are going to very soon start what we call Know Your Tribe, which is for those mid-20s, those first career people that are out of college and wondering, is this really what I have for the rest of my life? Is this who I'm going to be for the rest of my life? Helping them discover their purpose and what they want to do and who they want to be as they grow into the next stage of adulthood, I guess is what we'd call it. You know, at my point, everybody below me, I'm allowed, I've crossed the threshold where anybody that I think is younger than me, I can call a kid. So, you know, I'll admit it, I've crossed that threshold in life. Everybody's a kid. But you know what, those kids, they deserve to understand who they want to be and put a plan together so they can live with intention, as opposed to going through the motions of 9 to 5 and can't wait till 5 o'clock on Friday.
Absolutely.
Or even worse, you know, the people that can't wait till lunchtime because their jobs suck so bad that they just want to break.
I think that there's a lot of truth to that. So I think that's a great place to be in a good direction. That's awesome. You're able to give direction to those individuals and provide them some guidance. So, well, with that, as we've kind of now caught up to where your journey's at in the present, and even looking a bit into the future, great time to transition to the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
The worst business decision I ever made was the figurative, you put a sign out in your yard and they will come. I built the field of dreams. They didn't come. I wrote a book. I put stuff out, not out in the yard, but you know, on my LinkedIn page, and they didn't come. That's the worst. You know, sitting around, they'll come. I mean, look, all these other people did the same thing. They wrote a book. They said they're coaches. Look how successful. It doesn't work that way. You got to be proactive. You got to know who your audience is, who you want to work with, and quite frankly, target them. Understand what their pain points are. And if you don't solve their pain points, then you either got to figure out how to solve their pain points, or you got to change your target, change your niche to somebody that you resonate with and how you help them solve their pain points. And
I think that there's a ton of truth to that. And I think that, you know, everybody thinks, well, I'll be the exception. If I build a really cool, you know, the next mousetrap or the next service or, you know, next X, Y, and Z, people will just be banging down my doors to find it. First of all, they have to know where your door is at to even bang it down. But second of all, you have to help them understand that they need that. And if all you do is build it and kind of sit back and wait and then get frustrated when it's just not an automatic success, you know, it's the failures on your part, not on theirs. But I think it's one where a lot of people have that kind of view it as, you know, have that mentality, because it's a lot of times what you see in the movies and on the video or on the TV and on YouTube and in the books and that. And yeah, you hit the reality is you have to let them know where to come and give them directions and to know why they want to come. So I think that's definitely a great mistake to learn from. Second question, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Focus on the one thing that'll make you successful. Have a vision for that and backwards plan out that vision to where you take action steps, that everything you do, your most prized possession is your time, and allocate your time to the action steps that move you to fulfilling your purpose and achieving your vision. That's the secret to happiness and success. If you're just going through the motions, or the thing I find, I laugh because I do it too. As an entrepreneur is, you know, what's the next thing? Ooh, cool. Look at that thing. Look at that shiny. Let me create this thing over here because the shiny in you is so much more cooler than the thing I've been doing for a month and a half. You know, we got to stop doing that. You got to build on what you know, build on that foundation and create that success and build that success and build off of it. I said build a lot, didn't I? Build off of it. And then you could look at some other things once that's up and running, but get it up and running and successful. Don't keep adding capabilities to the app that you're developing before you even get it to an MVP or a release or whatever.
Yep.
Get it out there, test it, then start adding in some things.
The shiny things are so much more fun. No, I'm just kidding. I completely agree with you. I mean, it is one where there's always the shiny things, and because I think it's part of, almost goes back to the original thing. You know, sometimes you're saying, if I keep building it and I just need this one more feature, this one more shiny thing, and you keep doing it rather than focus on, hey, let's get what people want, focus in on that, and then really just, you know, blast it out to the marketplace and make sure people know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and give them the directions to be successful. So I think that that's definitely a great takeaway. Well, as people want to reach out to you, if they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, or find out more?
Yeah, tribe-purpose.com. That's our website. And if you click the get started button, you come up with two options. One, sign up for a 30-minute call with me, a strategy call. Two is jump on our newsletter, Monday Moments newsletter. I kick it out each Monday, and it's a great way to start your week off with a Stoic quote and get you thinking about how you can be successful and how you can drive and live life intentional. It's a nice, short little thing that I love sharing with people, because I'm a believer that my experiences and my skills, if I don't share them, I'm wasting them and I'm selfish. And that's one of the ways I love sharing is Monday Moments newsletter. It's a fun thing for me to do to help share, and it keeps me in contact with a lot of my clients and friends out there. And it's a great, you know, my Monday Moments tribe. I love the feedback I get from them too, because it resonates. Yeah, so that's it. I'm on LinkedIn too, so I'm always open to connect on LinkedIn. I'm the only Otis Mcgregor, because dad is Dr. O.W. McGregor. I'm just Otis McGregor. So
awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect, whether it's LinkedIn, the website, or get a strategy session and go from there. And definitely some great opportunities. So with that, thank you again, Otis, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review. So we want to make sure that everyone finds out about all these awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Otis, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.